With drone attacks from both Lebanon and Yemen, Israeli Air Force strikes in Beirut, attacks on the home of Israel's prime minister from within, and daily barrages of rockets on Israel from southern Lebanon, a lot has been happening here in the Holy Land. Also, the new Senate Majority Leader is threatening the ICC, while the Pope made an outrageous statement about Israel. I'm Josiah Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Thanks for watching the show today, guys. I want to give you an update about the war in Lebanon on Israel's northern border. Yesterday, Hezbollah fired 15 missiles into Israel from southern Lebanon. Thankfully, the rockets were either intercepted or landed in open areas. Also, in other news related to the war in Gaza, the new defense minister, Israel Katz, met with the IDF chief of staff, the Mossad director, director of the Shin Bet, the defense ministry director, and the IDF hostage liaison to discuss hostage negotiations with Hamas. Kind of a big meeting with a lot of Israel's top security people, basically the top security people in Israel's government. All met with the defense minister to talk about hostage negotiations with Hamas. Now, negotiations and talks about ceasefire with Hamas have been failing ever since, I was going to say the last couple of months, but really ever since the beginning of the war, because Hamas just does not want to negotiate and Hamas does not want a ceasefire. Hamas actually wants a ceasefire, but Hamas will not negotiate the release of the hostages, and that's not really even on the table for Hamas right now. They're trying to get a huge disproportionate return from Israel for the exchange of the hostages, which is an absolute lose for Israel and will not end well. And if that happens, if there's a disproportionate ceasefire deal here, where Israel releases thousands of terrorists for these hostages, that will result in years down the road and many, many more innocent life taken. Absolutely cannot continue. But these top security officials are meeting to discuss what can be done, how can we bring these hostages home, as there's kind of been a public sentiment here in Israel of moving towards trying to do everything possible to bring the hostages home as soon as possible. A drone was intercepted over Rehovot, which is south of Tel Aviv, south of the Ben Gurion airport in Tel Aviv. And the drone was reportedly launched from Yemen as the Houthis quickly took responsibility for the attack, saying they were targeting the Tel Aviv, Ashkelon region there. So as you can see, Israel's still under attack from the Houthis in Lebanon. The IDF is continuing to strike terror targets across Lebanon, working to destroy as much of Hezbollah's infrastructure in southern Lebanon as they can. According to the Times of Israel, they've reported also on Sunday, the IDF said it had completed a wave of airstrikes against Hezbollah targets in Dahiyeh. The targets hit fighter jets, included command rooms and other infrastructure, according to the military. Before those strikes were carried out, the IDF issued evacuation warnings to civilians in the area. So I think this region, the Dahiyeh region, don't know how to say that in Arabic, which is just south of Lebanon, I believe, has kind of been a very dense Hezbollah terrorist hub, and the IDF has been hitting multiple targets there, targeting Hezbollah terrorist infrastructure in that neighborhood, obviously issuing warnings to all the civilians beforehand that they should evacuate before the IDF hits those areas. Also, another win for the IDF yesterday, the Israeli Air Force targeted and conducted an airstrike to eliminate the top spokesperson for Hezbollah, Mohammed Afif. Hezbollah shortly after confirmed his death. That is another evil terrorist that Israel has brought to justice, brought to his just desserts, and will now be no longer heard from on the radios as Hezbollah, top spokesperson. In a little bit of other news, there was another attack on the residence of the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, after his house was struck by a drone last month by Hezbollah. It actually struck his house in Caesarea. This time, the attack was actually from within the country, what I'm referring to. The Times of Israel reported 3 people were arrested in the early hours of Sunday morning after a pair of flares were fired at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's private residence in Caesarea and landed in the yard. The incident drew condemnation from many of Israel's leaders across the political spectrum. Everybody saying this is not okay. And as we said before, 3 individuals were arrested. Thankfully, no damage was reported, and the security confirmed that the prime minister and his family were not at home at the time of this attack. Somebody shooting flares at the residence of the prime minister. The head of the Shin Bet, which is Israel's internal security agency, remarked that this incident marks to use his words, marks a dangerous escalation. And what he's referring to is the anti-government protest movement here in Israel, which has been gaining steam and been, I guess you couldn't say gaining steam because they've been protesting Netanyahu for quite a few years now. And as we saw just a year and a half ago, all the protests about judicial reform and all that stuff was kind of under the guise of protesting this judicial reform movement. But the core of that whole movement was basically anti-government, anti-Netanyahu specifically, that whole movement. All 3 of the suspects who were arrested for this incident in attacking the prime minister's house are prominent members of these anti-government protests. So obviously now the prime minister is kind of under attack himself. And as we can see here, this is a violent attack, shooting flares at the prime minister's residence. These flares can be very, very dangerous and cause serious harm or even death. And this is an inexcusable attack on democracy. You can be anti-government, you can be anti a prime minister in democracy. That's perfectly fine. But when it comes to actually trying to harm the person or the property of the prime minister, that's a completely different thing. And it seems like, thankfully, the incident's drawing condemnation across the political spectrum. Everybody sees this as the same. Okay, yes, we may not agree. Yes, we may hate each other's guts on different policies or whatever, but no, you cannot resort to violence when you do not agree with a political opponent. And for citizens of Israel, this is an unacceptable way to protest the government. We'll be right back to the show in just 1 second. But first, prayer is more than words. It's a journey to our deepest connection with God. But how often do we find ourselves wanting more, a deeper, more personal way to express our faith and gratitude? Introducing Stand By Me, Hebrew Prayers for All Believers, Volume 2, the next chapter in your spiritual journey. This new volume is not just a book, it's a spiritual guide created for believers of all backgrounds who are seeking a deeper understanding of prayer. Inspired by ancient wisdom from sages like Maimonides and Rabbi Hirsch, this collection brings the transformative power of Hebrew prayer into our daily life. Each prayer, whether for everyday use, the Sabbath, or special holidays, is carefully chosen to guide you in self-reflection, personal growth, and divine connection. With English translations and transliteration, Stand By Me Volume 2 makes it possible for everyone to experience the power of Hebrew prayer. No matter your level of Hebrew knowledge, this book invites you to deepen your relationship with God and bring more meaning to each moment. Don't wait to take the next step in your spiritual practice. Click the link below to get your copy of Stand By Me, Hebrew Prayers for All Believers, Volume 2, and begin your journey to a more connected, heartfelt prayer life. Click the link in the description below to check it out. So some more good news coming out of the United States in the upcoming administration that will be coming into office in January. The new U.S. Senate Majority Leader-elect, Senator John Thune, is threatening the ICC with sanctions unless it reverses its course to obtain arrest warrants for Israeli officials. The ICC is the International Criminal Court, and Senator John Thune, who's going to be the Senate Majority Leader in January, is now threatening the ICC with sanctions unless it reverses these arrest warrants that it's seeking for these Israeli officials. Senator John Thune posted this on X. I want to read this. He said, "If the ICC and its prosecutor do not reverse their outrageous and unlawful actions to pursue arrest warrants against Israeli officials, the Senate should immediately pass sanctions legislation, as the House has already done on a bipartisan basis. If Majority Leader Schumer does not act, the Senate Republican majority will stand with our key ally, Israel, and make this and other supportive legislation a top priority in the next Congress." So John Thune posted that on X. And just a little bit of backstory, if you have no idea what the ICC is or what they're doing to Israel, back in May, the International Criminal Court chief prosecutor, the International Criminal Court is located in The Hague in the Netherlands. The chief prosecutor requested arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the then defense minister Yoav Gallant, alleging they were committing war crimes in Gaza. Now, I will say he also requested arrest warrants for 3 top Hamas officials at the same time. All 3 of those officials have since been eliminated by Israel. But to lump Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the defense minister Yoav Gallant in with that classification with Hamas terrorist, arch terrorist, is absolutely preposterous and a flat out insane to even lump those 2 people in the same sentence as if they're same people saying they committed war crimes in Gaza. Now, previously, President Biden and the current Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, had both previously condemned the move by the ICC to obtain the arrest warrants for Israelis, but they did not do anything to try and stop it. Now, the House passed a bill already to sanction ICC members to revoke their visas coming into the United States, officials from the ICC, and to actually impose sanctions on those individuals, but it has not passed the Senate yet. And now the next Senate Majority Leader is promising to do that if Chuck Schumer doesn't do it beforehand and try to pass that legislation. Joe Biden, I believe Chuck Schumer as well, but at least Joe Biden has already expressed his disapproval of the bill that passed the House to sanction these ICC individuals, the International Criminal Court. But it's absolutely crazy that our international court in the world today is seeking arrest warrants for the Jewish state that was ruthlessly attacked, the leaders of the Jewish state that was ruthlessly attacked on October 7th by this arch terrorist group, this ISIS-like group, lumping the leaders of Israel in the same category with Hamas leaders, saying that the war crimes were committed. I guess they're referring to what is going on in Gaza, the destruction and the death that's happening in Gaza. But no, that's not a war crime. That is not a war crime that falls on, for one, it's not a war crime. For two, it's not a war crime that falls on the head of Benjamin Netanyahu, because they're doing everything they can possible to avoid civilian casualties. Any civilian casualties that happen in the Gaza Strip are solely the responsibility of the terrorist organization of Hamas. Speaking on anti-Israel rhetoric and world just hatred for Israel, the Pope Francis is now also calling for investigations into Israel for genocide. So not only is the ICC caught up in this blood libel against Jews in Israel, but the Pope is now coming out with his own outrageous remarks about the conflict in Gaza. He's calling for an investigation on Israel for genocide, for what happened in Gaza, calling for an investigation into Israel for genocide. Israel, absolutely crazy. The word genocide, and now the Pope is calling for this. The Associated Press reported Pope Francis has called for an investigation to determine if Israel's attacks in Gaza constitute genocide, according to excerpts released on Sunday, just yesterday, from his upcoming new book ahead of the Pontiff's Jubilee year. And the first time that Francis has openly urged for an investigation of genocide allegations over Israel's actions in the Gaza Strip. So an excerpt published yesterday from his book said this, quote, "According to some experts, what is happening in Gaza has the characteristics of a genocide. We should investigate carefully to determine whether it fits into the technical definition formulated by jurists in the international bodies." End quote. Is that crazy or what? The Pope is saying we should investigate Israel to determine if what they're doing is a genocide in Gaza. I mean, a 2-year-old could tell you this, what Israel, the war Israel is fighting, the war of self-defense, the war of survival against a terrorist organization of Hamas is not a genocide, especially when Israel is bending over backwards, getting their own soldiers killed in order to avoid at all cost civilian casualties in Gaza of the Palestinian people. Now, the word genocide is thrown around like crazy in the pro-Palestinian movements around the world, the protests that happen. And I really don't think that most Palestinian protests, especially the people in the West, the college students who are chanting these things that Israel's committing genocide, I really don't think that most of those people actually know what genocide means. But in case anybody doesn't know what genocide means, this is the Oxford definition. Genocide is the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. That's the definition of genocide. The deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. Israel, for one, is not deliberately killing a large number of Palestinians. Israel is deliberately taking out terrorists who are harming the state of Israel. While that is happening, they're doing everything that possible to avoid civilian casualties. While that is happening, Hamas is bending over backwards to put civilians in harm's way so that they can accuse Israel of killing civilians. If anything, Hamas is deliberately killing a large portion of people from a particular nation, particularly their own people, the Palestinian people, the people that identify with Hamas, the people that Hamas identifies with. Hamas is deliberately killing a large number of those people by putting them in harm's way, and in many cases, actually killing them themselves. But so I don't expect every single. I mean, I would hope that college students would do the research first before they start shouting Israel's committing genocide across the globe. But you don't really expect it in today's world for people to actually, go to the dictionary and look up the definition. But the Pope should know exactly what the definition of genocide is, and he should be able to see and use his own brain to just analyze the situation and realize in about 2.5 seconds that what's happening in Gaza in no way constitutes a genocide from Israel. Israel is in no way committing a genocide. But again, it's showing a lot of the anti-Semitism, especially what the Pope has expressed in the past on the nation of Israel and on the Jewish state here. That's all for today, guys. Please continue to pray for the nation of Israel. They definitely need your prayers. And don't forget to check out the Stand By Me Hebrew Prayers for All Believers book. The link is down in the description below. Make sure to subscribe and let me know what you think down in the comments below. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what is happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back soon. I'm Josiah Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys.